Welcome to Forum 360. I'm Mark Welfley. Thank you for joining us for our global outlook with a local view. Do you know what the coldest day on record in Northeast Ohio is? Take a guess. Well, according to various sources, on January 20th, 1985, with the wind chill, the temperature in Akron dropped to negative 56 degrees. And in case you're wondering, 104 degrees is the hottest temperature recorded in Northeast Ohio in Cleveland on June 25th of 1988. Weather affects almost everything we do in our lives, so it's not surprising that Northeast Ohio has a fascination with weather and its many legendary weather forecasters, and I'm sure you can think of at least one. Well, how are weather forecasts put together? What makes Northeast Ohio weather unique? And is technology changing the way weather is forecast? For those answers and more, we will turn to my guest today, Katie McGraw, meteorologist with News 5 Cleveland. And welcome, Katie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So tell me a little bit about how you came to become a meteorologist.
Yeah.
Do you start at the age of 5 and hope to be one of
Yeah.
the forecasters in Cleveland, or how does it work?
So mine started probably between the ages 10 and 12, and it started out of a fear of thunderstorms, thanks to the movie Twister. So the original Twister, with the opening scene with the dad, it terrified me, and I would have dreams about it. The sky got a little dark. I would start to hunker down and think about it. And I can still remember being in my basement with the dog and the candles and watching local meteorologists in Cleveland, and I loved how they were able to make me feel better. So shortly after that, closer to 8th grade probably, I did have a diary that I wrote in, I think 3 entries, and it said I was going to be a meteorologist. And once it was time for me to pick a school and a future, it kind of came back into the lens, and that's when I decided to major in meteorology at Ohio University.
Right. And from there, your first job, and how ultimately did you wind up at News 5 Cleveland?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Cleveland. Well, it was a suburb of Cleveland in Wickliffe. And initially, when I decided to do meteorology, I had this preconceived notion that TV meteorologists weren't real meteorologists. I thought they were just presenters, kind of reading whatever it was. And shortly into learning more about weather in general, but also learning more about broadcast, I learned that that was not the case at all. Almost all of them have some type of atmospheric background, but most of them have meteorology degrees. And it was about probably my junior year in college, and OU is known for their broadcast and their journalism school. And so I decided to just take a stab at it. They have a program at it's a PBS, so WOUB, and I was able to do green screen work, and I just really fell in love with it. And so after college, I went to Zanesville, Ohio, WHIZ, and there I was a producer, anchor, did weather, did everything, just learning more about the TV business, because college got me ready for the weather side, and Zanesville, I would say, was almost like a paid internship. And then Erie for 2 years, Louisville for 5, and then I've been back in Cleveland for 4 years now.
Yeah, right. So talk to me about Northeast Ohio weather. What makes it unique or different from other areas of the country?
Sure. Snow. It's always going to be the snow and the lake effect that we get here, and we're used to it, but when you talk about it, for example, when I was in Louisville and I would talk about the snowstorms that we would get, or even showing, because my husband's from Erie, Pennsylvania, and I remember that there was I forget the year, I think it was 2017. They got so much snow around Christmas. And I remember showing the photos of his Jeep and what it looked like in Erie versus Louisville. And people who aren't from here just they can't comprehend how much snow we can get. Plus, I always appreciate, as a forecaster and a meteorologist, that Clevelanders get it when it comes to snow. That a couple miles apart, we could be feet difference in snow. And just because if you're from the area, you're very aware of it. So I would definitely say Lake Erie, it's our life source. It's amazing that we have that fresh water, but it does make forecasting a good challenge and a bad challenge.
So I was going to ask you is what's the most difficult part of the job of weather forecasting? Is it
I would say lake effect.
Every 2 miles it might be completely different weather.
Yeah, it's And it's so finicky. When I am talking on air about forecasting for lake effect snow, I always say that the lake effect snow is fickle, and it can, just a small deviation in a wind direction or wind speed can result in hugely different numbers, different positions of where the snow is located. And we always talk about it when you get a forecast wrong. We call it a bust. And one of the biggest busts I ever had was when I was in Erie, Pennsylvania. And it was 2014 November, and we were predicting, 50, 60 inches of snow. National news was there, all this stuff, and the winds never shifted. So Erie got flurries, and Buffalo got like 70 inches. It was by far the worst forecast we had ever done. But everyone, it was just one of those where the winds just never changed.
So how has weather forecasting changed over the last, say, 10 years?
Yeah, it just continues, in my opinion. We continue to get better. Technology is already, in just the last 10, 20 years, has already improved. And our goal, ultimately, of course, we always want to be accurate about the high temperature or something like that. But ultimately, our biggest goal is to talk about if there's going to be the threat for severe weather, the threat to life and property. That was in college, my first meteorology class, Meteorology 101. The first thing I ever wrote down in my notebook was that the number one job of a meteorologist is to protect the people and their property. And so I definitely try to live by that throughout my entire career, of just keeping that in the forefront of everything. So if there's that threat, making sure that you're giving people that ample information. And then in the day of that imminent threat, being on air, being there for people in that scary moment, like when I was a little kid and terrified of it.
Periodically, I will be watching the weather forecast, and one of the forecasters will say, well, we got, we saw the weather from a particular city and maybe an airport, and another camera has another, from another city has its eye on the weather, and I guess cobbled together a view of what Northeast Ohio or that particular whole area was like. Is that how it works? You take different feeds or different reports from different areas and put it together into one forecast?
Well, yeah, absolutely. So all of our computer models, so a lot of times if we're talking about a system that might be super impactful, but it's all the way out in the Pacific Ocean or something, we need it to get on land in order, or overland, I should say, over the U.S. Because the second it gets to the West Coast, that's when they'll start sending weather balloons up. All of that information and data that they get in those weather balloons will then go right into our computer models. So our computer models get better as the storms get closer. So using data downstream of us ahead of time is absolutely pivotal. Watching the radar as it moves towards us, it's invaluable.
So they'll actually send a weather balloon up?
Yeah. So all the National Weather Services do it I think it's, don't quote me on this, I think it's like once or twice a day, but they are sending those weather balloons up, and all of that, there's a little computer in there, and that gets into all of our data then.
How high does it go?
So it goes all the way up. So I should actually go and launch one, because this is like a test question or something, because I'm not 100% sure exactly the process of them getting that weather balloon up. I know that a lot of times they don't get the balloons back, but it is all that information that they're getting, and it's going pretty high up. I believe anywhere between like 10 and 30,000 feet. It's going pretty high.
Okay.
I think. I'll have to look that one up. I should actually ask the National Weather Service if I could go watch one day, because it would be a super important moment for me to learn.
That's interesting. Yeah. So I have to ask you about AI. And AI affects everything you do. And how about weather? So what is AI enhancing the weather? How is it going to help or even hurt forecasting in the years to come?
I don't think it can hurt the forecasting element. I think that forecasting, computer models, all of that will improve with AI. I think the big question is, will we become obsolete then? And I like to argue that you'll always need that human mind, that expertise, the person that grew up in Northeast Ohio, to still understand that data and information that we're getting. But it's a very, and how fast it's changed just in the last few. Talk about technology changing. AI videos a few years ago. I think the one that they always show is the AI video of Will Smith from like 2 or 3 years ago, and it looks like his face is like melting or something. And now you see these videos, and it's kind of scary how realistic it looks sometimes. So I think it's a kind of wait and see. I think when it comes to getting better forecasts, it's a good thing. In terms of maybe other parts, maybe it's a little nerve-wracking.
Sure. And is there anything else coming down the pipe in weather forecasting over the next 10 years that is, significant, meaningful, something you'd like to tell us about?
Not that I'm aware of, but there's so many people who, are smarter than me doing all of this intense research, especially I feel like when it comes to hurricane forecasting and that tornado research that, truthfully, like what Twister was, right? Those storm chasers that are trying to get that on the ground information. And so I think there's always going to be changes in weather. I think back to just the 1950s and how in 1978 there was a tornado outbreak, or 74, excuse me, and there was a tornado outbreak across the country. And it was a devastating event, and it would have been, just in this amount of time, in that 50-year span, the way in which technology has gotten so much better that if there's going to be a tornado outbreak, we know like days in advance. And so that it came without warning thing is becoming less and less.
Love for weather. Is the industry of meteorology, is it growing to your knowledge?
Yeah.
Is it where is it? People want to become weather people?
Just looking at like my small data pool of even just at Ohio University. When I graduated, the program was incredibly small. I think I graduated with 7 other Mets. And now I look at their school photos and stuff, and it has tripled the size of who's going into meteorology. And I think majority of the time, and I tell this when I do school talks or when kids come to visit and maybe have that proclivity towards weather or interest in it. And my little avenue of doing broadcast meteorology is still just one facet of so many other jobs in the country. You have your researchers, you have your storm chasers, you have your private sectors working for companies, airports, all that kind of stuff. So I think there's still tons of opportunities for Mets, the National Weather Service, working for NOAA, anything like that.
Thank you. If you're just joining us, thank you for listening and for watching. My name is Mark Welfley, and this is Forum 360. And I am talking today with Katie McGraw, who is News 5 Cleveland's meteorologist, and we're talking about essentially a day in the life of a weather forecaster or meteorologist.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, continuing on, mentors.
Yeah.
How important are they? Did you have one? How did you use your mentor to make you better than?
I've had a couple. One that is still very much a presence in my life is, so I did an internship my senior year of college, and I just put out applications everywhere around Cleveland and stuff. But I also threw in some in Chicago because my sister lived there at the time. So I was able to stay with her. So I threw one into WMAQ, which was the NBC in Chicago. And the meteorologist who was working weekends at the time reached back to me, and that was Ginger Z. And if you're not familiar with Ginger Z, she is now the chief meteorologist of ABC News. And talk about somebody that has really made a difference in so many aspects of meteorology, particularly towards women. Like, we're not weather girls. She really puts that we're just as much of a scientist as the pretty face that you might see or whatever. But also talking about climate change. She's always there on the ground for hurricanes, tornado outbreaks, things like that. So very boots on the ground. But bottom line, she wasn't just there for me during that internship. I could still text her right now and she'd text me back. So she's just very much always been there, helpful with making reels to get jobs. Even I remember calling her once about like a question I had with like a meteorology class. So she's always been super helpful. And then just all the different jobs that I've worked at, there's also been those mentors as well. So it's been, my last chief meteorologist, his name was Mark Weinberg. He was like an encyclopedia of weather. And one of my favorite parts of weather is that you're always learning something new. You can just continue to expand your mind. And I feel like his is like somehow filled with everything. I asked him a question and he would know. So, and even the people I work with now, they're also mentors to me as well. Everyone has their niche and what they're good at, and it's helpful to have them around as well.
Yeah. Thanks. I want to talk about actually putting a weather forecast together. So, when you arrive into the station, like, what do you look at? Who do you talk to? How do you piece it all together so that when you go on, it's all ready to go with the clicker.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that, you're aware of the fact that we are doing our own forecasting. So it's not me reading off the teleprompter. We actually don't use a teleprompter. It's all ad-libbed. And so when I get in, I learn by writing. So I have like a very intense forecast sheet that I start with looking at the 7-day from the person that was there before me. So when I go into work here in the next hour or two, I'll look at Phil Sakel's forecast that he had at noon and 4, and that's my starting base. So I just write down what he had for the 7-day, and then I go and I look at all these different computer models. So there's a couple different ones that are like just my go-tos really quick. So there's one called the HRRR, so that's the high resolution rapid refresh computer model. Essentially, that's when you can't use that one if you're looking for next Sunday. It's just in the next 48 hours that you can get that information. And then every hour, they'll pump out just like a quick little 14-hour forecast. Every 6 hours, they give you 48 hours. And there's different computer models just like that. So then you'll go like to the NAM. The NAM 3 is another one that takes you 60 hours. The GFS and the Euro take you even farther. So I'll go through all those computer models, just a quick little, what does the future radar look like? Then I'll focus on the threat for severe weather. What are the systems looking like? Is there going to be a warm front, cold front? Is there a trough? Just getting a general idea about the trends over the next week or sometimes even farther. And then you'll get more into the nitty-gritty of tweaking the temperatures. Do I think it's going to be 84 or is it going to be 87? Things like that. And that's usually a little bit later down the line. But we'll also, because we're on broadcast, and I think a big part of a broadcast meteorologist's job is to try to relate to everybody. Whether you have kids, whether you don't, whether you have a dog, whether you don't, whether you are a gardener or not, so trying to think outside the box every day of how to tell the forecast. So that includes boating forecasts. If you want to get your car washed, I try to think of all those things and switch it up throughout the day. And then also with forecasting, it's not just like one and done. So I'll forecast when I first get to work. And an hour is like the perfect amount of time to forecast. Sometimes that doesn't happen. But, and then I'll go back because lately I've been doing the 3:30 to 11:30 p.m. shift. So then after the 7 p.m., new data is starting to come in around like 9 o'clock. So I'll re-forecast and just check and see, are one of these computer models acting silly or anything like that.
Sure. Have you been in a situation where you've had to really make a difficult decision, 4 feet on the ground or sunny, and you just went back and forth and saying, I just don't know, or are all your models kind of clear enough that you're going to be within a tolerance that's largely acceptable, whether it's temperature or snowfall, rainfall?
No, there's definitely almost like weekly. We have to make those decisions of what we think it'll be, and it becomes more imperative when we're talking about severe weather, as I mentioned, when we're talking about that snow. And so I really try to be real with viewers. This is what we know. This is what we don't know. If I'm feeling unconfident the day of an event, I'll say it. As much as I don't want to do that. I want to be like, this is exactly what's going to happen. But I also feel people can understand that. Like, it's meteorology. It's not a perfect science. And it's actually like job security that it's not, honestly. But then the next time we'll use an event and be like, how did it play out a year ago when we had a really similar scenario and stuff like that. And so, but yeah, I would say more often than not, and that's truthfully like the meteorologist's job. Like the data can be killer for like a month, and then you'll have another month where none of them are in agreement, and you have to use your own judgment calls, your own history of what you know about the area. And sometimes there is like a little bit of an intuition factor, like a little witchy or something.
Sure. So a couple of weeks ago, we watched you start at 6 o'clock and narrate, give an overview of the a tornado that was rolling through Brimfield, that area.
Yeah.
And so my question is, is that a difficult part of the job when you realize you're going to have to be on the air, continue to fill an hour's worth of time with meaningful information? Perhaps you have a voice in your ear. Perhaps it's another meteorologist telling you, here's an update, here's what we think is going to happen.
Sure.
Is that a difficult challenge?
Yeah. So that was something that I really honed in my skills when I was in Louisville. I was not great at it. And the best advice I ever got was from another meteorologist, Rick DeLuca. And he basically told me, just like when I'm forecasting or looking at the radar and I'm just sitting there thinking, like you're essentially just thinking out loud. And so you're just, what you're seeing, and so you just explain it. And so I would find it is an intense moment for sure, but you just let the weather tell the story, really. And you were able to see my process a little bit of like, I'll hone in on wherever a tornado warning is, but usually in our neck of the woods, we'll get like a squall line. And along there, you get these little notches and multiple rotators. So it's important to go up and down that line. Plus, people are watching you and wondering, like, well, what about me? You know, where am I safe? Yeah. So trying to show, and sometimes you'll see then, oh, there's another area of rotation. So I would say that they can be challenging days, but again, it's like why I got into it, and I think are most important, because even people who don't watch the news, they like love to say I don't watch the news, they will tune in when there's a tornado warning at their house.
So if someone calls the station and says, we sighted a tornado, will you already have known about that through radar, or could it be new news to you?
It could be new news, because a lot of times we're first getting a warning or we're watching something and it's radar indicated. So the second that you get, especially if it's a report from, say, like a police officer or emergency management person, or you're just getting tons of an influx of videos or pictures that are undeniable, then it becomes a confirmed tornado, which is a difference in terms of this is now not just the possibility, there is a tornado on the ground. So we even have it's a different tag on the warning. It flashes a different color, and it's all because now we have eyes that this isn't just floating in the sky, it's down on the ground.
Yeah, interesting. I asked you a little bit about it, the job interview and what it's like to, and you talked about reels, and has there ever been a time when you've been really nervous in front of the camera for whatever reason, going back to your first day in front of a green screen?
Yeah.
So what makes you nervous about it?
Well, I'm not super nervous anymore. Yeah. It's definitely gotten more comfortable, and like the camera is kind of like my safe zone, you know. And I think that's one of the things, and I mean, you understand it, that you don't have a bunch of eyeballs blinking back at you. It's kind of like you feel like you're playing sometimes with your friends, like we're playing news, because you take it seriously, but at the same time, it's different when you have that like live audience feature. But yeah, I mean, when I started, just the live element of it terrified me. I mean, my hands would shake and all that, and I wasn't very good when I started. I was telling you before we started that people will come to the station and say, oh, you're such a natural. Like, no, I've been in this for 12 plus years. Like, this was a lot of effort, but I promise you, it was not something that came super easy. It's just, honestly, it was one of those of like, practice makes perfect. Mm-hmm. I had to just keep doing it.
Sure. At the end of the day, 11:30, these times, are you tired? Like, do you exhale? What do you do when you're finally off the air?
It depends, like, truthfully, the different schedule that you're on. And so when I first started doing live TV, I mean, I would have this like natural high, natural adrenaline that happened because of like being live on TV. And you still have that a little bit because you have to have that energy, and you're there for people. It is that you want them to be listening to what you're saying, so you definitely are up, and it takes a little bit to come down, but I can usually lately fall asleep by like 1 a.m., so that's after my drive home, so it's definitely still early, but all the different shifts in weather are kind of wild. So.
Are you replaying things that you said in your head?
Sometimes.
Yeah. Did I say that right? Is it really 85 degrees?
Days, that's something that took me a long time. That like if I had a bad hit, say right at the start of a show, and I couldn't get my words out right for whatever reason, I used to let it really kind of stick with me, and it would continue then. I would just have a bad day. Now if I have a bad hit, I'll joke about it with the anchors in the commercial break, like, what was that? And just kind of move on, because it can happen. You can be awkward. You can say things that you don't mean, or like you get into a hole and you can't dig yourself out. Usually I can get myself out of it. I'm like, what am I talking about? Like, let's pull out. But it's, I think that thankfully it's like if I do something awkward, it's only like one hit and not a whole day.
Sure. Going back to the tornado report that you did for that hour.
Yeah.
One of the things you did during that report is you actually sat down. And I thought that was really, it was different obviously, but it was really helpful to me because mentally it told me that this is going to be a while. We're not just going to stand up for 2 minutes and talk about, I mean, sit down, this front is moving through, and you were talking about redlining and how it's moving through. And I thought when you sat down, I think to the audience, if me for sure, but perhaps others, that was a relief. They say, okay, we're going to be at this.
Yeah.
Katie's got it under control. Let's
That's
figure
good.
it
I'm glad.
out. But I don't think I've ever seen a weather person
Yeah.
sit down.
So
right?
so I am, full disclosure, I'm 5 months pregnant, so that's part of it. And so I definitely that day in particular, I mean, it was basically from, honestly, even earlier in the day, I was checking models. I mean, those severe weather days, it's a full encompassing event. And so when you're talking nonstop for 45 minutes and when you're alone, when you have the tag team coverage, it was something I kind of didn't mention when you had asked me the question about doing those kind of cut-ins. When you have another Met with you, it does alleviate the pressure that you're under, because it's just two brains, two opinions. You both have the expertise. You can ask each other, like, what do you think about this, or stuff like that. So when you're alone and it's all eyes are on you, it can be a little, it's like, but I do still love it. It's like our Super Bowl, honestly.
In the 10 seconds or so, can you give me one piece of advice that you would like for all of the viewers and listeners to know about weather?
Yeah, I think that it isn't a perfect science. So I gave the compliment to Clevelanders, but just always be patient with us, and I will always own it when I'm wrong, and I'll try to tell you as much as I do or do not know.
Great, thank you very much. When I lived in California, my mom would call me on a perfect fall or spring day and say, Northeast Ohio has the best seasons. And she was right. It's part of the reason I moved back here several years ago. Our weather is part of who we are. There are lots of quotes about weather. Scottish comedian Billy Connolly said, "There's no such thing as bad weather, only the wrong clothes." Or one of my favorites, "I have seen many storms in life and most were just passing through." So I would like to thank Katie McGraw from News 5 Cleveland for passing through today.
Yes.
And sharing some of your wisdom and thoughts on weather, and invite each of you to keep your eyes, ears, and minds open until next time on Forum 360.
Forum 360 is brought to you by John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, the Akron Community Foundation, Hudson Community Television, the Rubber City Radio Group, Shaw Jewish Community Center of Akron, Blue Green, Electric Impulse Communications, and Forum 360 supporters.